they'll sometimes go out for another 15 or something like that, and then we just work up to 90. And we don't have any really long, when the Christensens came through, they came with the Midwest sort of mentality where they do a really long run one day and then they hammer the track the next day and they alternate all the way through. If it's cross-country season, they do like 6 by 800, because that equals 3 miles. And they did a lot of standing around recovering and stuff like that. So we didn't, and they would run like a mile warm-up, 3 miles in the workout, mile cool down, 5 miles. They wouldn't, ours tend to be, you know, for my top guys, they probably never run shorter than 6 or 7, but never really run more than 12. We keep the volume moderate and stuff like that. The other kids, again, it's all by time, so, you know, I got kids that in 40 minutes are gonna get, you know, easily get 6 miles, while other kids are gonna get 4 miles. So, and I don't have them chart their mileage at all. The good ones do during the season, but I don't have, you know, like I don't make them keep track. That's probably something I probably should have said. I totally spaced it. For cross-country season in particular, the workouts that we do, they keep an index card. It's like 5 by 7 with lines. They write their name on it, which season it is, the date that they're doing it, and so the first one will be that 10-lap time trial. They'll write that on there. They'll write their time. The stuff that we do specific, the stuff that we time, they keep track of. And the real reason for that is not, I don't really care about the day-to-day stuff, but at the end of the season or at the end of their careers, they can go back and look and see where they come. I think distance runners in general are really bad at recognizing that they've gotten better. Because if they're trying to run 17 minutes and they do it, now it's 16:30. If they ever run slower than 17 minutes again, they're pissed, right? And so they tend to be really bad at recognizing how good they've got, because that's where they're at. Like, so I think by having them record that, they can then look back and say, holy crap, last time I was doing these, I look at it, I did 8 of them and I was supposed to run 133 and I was barely hanging on, and then at the end of the season I did 12 of them and I was running, like 133 was the slowest one I did. And I think, you know, that psychologically speaking, I think that has big benefits to that. You know, let's face it, in order to run, and their goal pace is set up for meet of champions. And the best case scenario. So, you know, if we set their pace up to be 16, then I anticipate at meet of champions under decent conditions, they're going to run somewhere between 16 and 16:30. And for the most part, this year was not a very good year to go off of that, but for most years, it's pretty good. It works pretty well. And that's why we don't do a lot of overspeed stuff. Again, we don't really have a facility that allows for that. And second of all, I want their body to know right where they're supposed to go. So I've given the green light on the last couple to go, but I want the bulk of their work to be at the pace we want. And realistically, they haven't run that fast yet, so it is speed. Yep.
So kind of 2 parts. So
yep.
You said about the high school to college transition.
Yep.
And wondering about that injury prevention, because obviously like limited resources kind of thing,
yep.
is like your mobility and your limited volume, kind of your injury prevention aspect for that?
I mean, I think some of our injury prevention is just simply in the fact that we don't have the facilities that allow us to crank real hard. I think that's, you know, it's really when you're at the end of your ability that injuries start to come on.
It was more like the lack too, so like if you're running those in the
right.
hallways and stuff, like you're going to get shins once you're going to get
well, and that's why none of our workouts ever are more than 5 miles indoors. None, ever.
Sense, yeah.
We limit that, and that, you know, now that we're only doing it once a week in there, and it's an hour long, guess what? When you're splitting out people so you can have one group on recovery and one group running, and they do standing recovery for indoor, I should say that, only because they can't do running recovery or they're in the way. And so we split them into 2 groups so that they're alternating. There's no way for them to get really more than 5 miles in an hour when you're splitting them out that way. We also, I mean, another thing that we started doing more, and I'm not good at drills or anything like that. I picked up some injury prevention stuff. Actually, it was last year here with a Plymouth State guy, and he says, if there's only one thing that you could do, he gave me these foot walks. So you walk on your heels, walk on your toes, in, out, edges, edges. we do that 2 or 3 times a week, and we also have some resistance bands where they, you know, just do sumo walks and stuff like that. We do that, like I said, we do that 2 to 3 times a week, and that's really.
Cause like my background's the science piece, so like the strength, and then like because we have limited resources, I'm finding in the winter, even if we don't have like running, if we can't do the volume and aerobic stuff, if we actually implement the strength stuff and the mobility and like just like reduce, so the quality over quantity thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's just like a piece that I was thinking, like.
Yeah, yeah. You know, again, we tend to be fairly distance oriented. The idea of lifting weights, they hate it. We don't lift weights. But we do a fair number of, we do core work every day. Some days it's more, some days it's less. You know, before a meet we don't do a lot, but and as we get into the end of the season, we'll just do an injury prevention instead of core if it's like the day before season. Again, the good kids are going to do the work, so I don't worry too much about the fact that they're not running structured practice for indoor and indoor. As far as I'm stupid, you know, we get snowed out. I remember one day we had practice, you know, like on a Tuesday or something like that, and for 3 weeks in a row, Tuesdays, everything was canceled after school. So if you have kids that are super invested in indoor and they're missing every Tuesday, where are they going to get? How are they going to do that? So we don't, you know, and because we're limited, I think de-emphasizing it helps the kids not want it too bad in a time when it's very difficult for them to get it anyways. I know that I was talking with.
It's true of me too. I do the same thing. I can't. I have to do it that way.
Yeah, I was talking with the old Conval coach Jenkins like 10 years ago, and we were talking. I'm like, oh yeah, we can't run on the roads, and he's like, well, you just can't. Just go into a development. We don't have any developments. There's nothing there. We have to run 2 miles before we can find a development that could possibly run it. So, you know, and I don't know how you do it, but they used to do like figure 8s and all this stuff through these roads, and that one development you have down from the school, you could probably run for 6 or 7 miles without being on the same road, because they just do this over and over again. But we don't have that, so we're screwed. So, we try. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
How long were we supposed to go?
I don't know.
15, I think.
Huh? Oh, Jesus.
But we were fine.
Did John leave already? Yeah, good. He didn't know I went over by that much.
Good luck this weekend, Michael.
Thank you.
Get one there, would you do? Well, that's good.
Right out?
Yeah.
Not right out, but soon. I was trying to get home for noon, so
Yeah.
we could leave. It's like
It's
3.5 hour trip. Well, no,
Not today. They have that
Yeah, we have 15 minutes, and then we have one at 10:50. And we got, it's like
What do we got now?
fit, Runners Alley.
10:15 is that first intersection? Okay, so we do have some.
Oh, yeah, we do. And, let's see, so that's what's in here. But which one are you gonna go to after this one? This is, it's javelin drills, this is motivating today's
Yeah, I'm
athletes.
kind of interested to see what.
Yeah, that's what that's gonna be like. There's a few people who.
I'd like to go to the javelin one too, but I missed the first part and I don't know, there's too much stuff.
There's a few people, I remember I was at Plymouth last fall and we were talking about, I was talking about yelling at some runners that weren't mine. I said I felt bad about it, but they were